Hi, guys!
Hey!
Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and yes, welcome to Kat's Peeps who may be watching, because I am joined by my friend Kat. Hey,
Yay!
Kat!
How are ya?
How are ya? How are ya?
Arg.
What did you do the other time? Argus! Yes, I can't wait for Argus. I don't know about you guys. Anyway, that's a joke from a past stream. Welcome, guys. Today we are talking about Stephen King, but before we get there, happy May 1st. And happy, what month is it?
It is Zombie Awareness Month, guys, and I am so excited. My favorite month, probably after Halloween.
Yeah.
October.
You really
October.
like Zombie Awareness Month. I will say it's not my second favorite month, but I am hyped because I've got some great books picked out, and I've got some really cool movies picked out too. So I'm excited.
You're getting there.
I am. Tell us about what you're wearing to be thematic.
Ooh, I am wearing my Walking Dead. I don't know if you can see it. My Walking
Look
Dead
at the skull
t-shirt. I love The Walking Dead.
I know you really, really like it. I used to like it till everyone started getting killed. And then I was like, I don't really like this anymore.
It's all the characters that have a moral compass end up getting killed. I mean, not all of them. They do have some villains that get killed too, but it just seems like once you start really liking the character,
then they're
gonna die.
Yeah, it sucks. Like that's the part that it made it hard. I just wanted to show you guys I am wearing thematic earrings for May 1st. Even though it says it's gonna be May, it's already May, but still, it's gonna be May. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing. It's ridiculous. It's NSYNC spoof song. Because the real lyrics are "It's gonna be me," but he says it and it's like he's saying May.
I get it.
So it's like with like a little 90s, like "It's gonna be May." So he does it with like a little accent. I don't know, not a 90s accent, but like a young person weirdo accent. I don't know. It's very strange.
A boy band accent.
Yes, a boy band accent. Exactly. You know what I'm saying. Welcome, guys, officially. So we're not talking Zombie Awareness Month officially yet, even though it is Zombie Awareness Month. We are talking Stephen King today. We're talking The Dark Half, both the book and the movie. And as you see right here in the little scrolling banner, we will be talking about spoilers. So be warned, we will be saying spoilers. So if you've not read the book, you might want to tune out and come back at a later time after you've finished the book, or if you've not seen the movie, because I believe, in my opinion, I think the book and movie are quite different in some ways.
Oh, yes, yes.
So I would say if you want to see the movie and not get spoilers about that, then maybe tune out, watch the movie, come back and watch this at a later time. Thanks to anyone who's joining live, like Cool Gamer, hey, Jamie, hello, and Helco.
Hey.
So glad to have all of you. And thank you to anyone watching after the fact, on demand, let's say. I guess that's the best way to describe
it.
We
appreciate anyone who is joining us today or in the future.
And I do want to say, so today we are talking about The Dark Half, and even though it's May, we just, we couldn't get this scheduled in April, but it's technically The Dark Half was our April King read.
Right.
So our May read for this month that we're in now will be Pet Sematary, and this stream will be later on in the month. Yes. We do have it scheduled. It's May 22nd, I believe.
I believe so.
So Sunday, if that's a Sunday, whatever the day the Sunday is, it's Sunday, I think May 22nd at 2 p.m.
It is, definitely.
So we will be talking about this and the 2 movie adaptations. So both versions of Pet Sematary, the movie, the 1989 version and then the 2000, I think it's 19 version.
It's a recent one.
Yes, it's more recent. So we're talking about both of those. So if you want to join us for that, just make sure you've already read the book and seen both of those movies. But without further ado, let's dive into The Dark Half. I'm about to say this is not dive in. This is dive in. So,
do you have a dark half? You think?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys could see the eyebrows. I was like, yes, I think so.
It's our horror watching self. Yeah. It's our dark half.
Well, Paul would tell you yes. Yeah. And it's not my horror watching side. It's my getting annoyed at him side and angry. So yes, I do have a dark half.
Yeah.
I think we all do.
I think so. I think we go to the dark side from time to time, especially if we're passionate about something or things don't go our way.
I'd be scared to see your dark half. Great face. We also are joined by Mr. Morningstar and Smells Like Teen Horror. Hi guys, how you doing?
Hi, welcome.
Yes, happy Sunday. Slime balls. I like that. I gotta use that. That's great. All right, hello guys. We're just like about to jump in, perfect timing. All right, Kat, keep going. Dark Half. Let's
Dark
talk about
Half.
it.
Okay, so
1989, it was published.
1989 it was published, and basically what I found out is Stephen King had come across some information that learning that twins sometimes can be absorbed in the womb, and that kind of sparked his interest. He thought, what if this guy I'm writing about, has a ghost of a twin that's, never existed, but then it wants to, kind of take over his life or whatever.
Are we gonna mention that the dedication?
Yes, I
You've
do
got a
have
note
that.
about that?
Yes, I
Yeah,
do.
go ahead.
And then basically what he did was he wrapped the whole book around the spine. I just finished a book called The Creative Habit by Twyla Tharp, and she talks about anyone who's creative, you have a spine, whether it's, you're writing something, you're creating a piece of art, you're, going to choreograph a dance. And so I just thought it was so awesome as I was doing my research on this that he actually had a quote that he wrapped the whole book around the spine.
Oh,
meaning
I see.
that, so apparently that is jargon used in the creative community.
I didn't know that.
To build in a creative habit. Anyway, so that's about where that premise came on. But about the same time, Stephen King was also, it was his kind of way of saying goodbye to his own, pen name. Which is Richard Bachman. And just like in the book and the movie, a fan pretty much reveals that he had a pen name.
That happened in real life?
Yes.
Really?
It happened in real life. Yes. So anyway, for those of you that don't know, Stephen King's pen name is Richard Bachman, and he wrote under that name primarily from 1977 to 1984. And he published a series of novels individually. And then there is the copy that I have is called the Bachman Books. And in the Bachman Books, it's those 4 novels, which is Rage, The Long Walk, Road Work, and The Running Man. And then he did a standalone novel called Thinner. Now, The Running Man and Thinner were both turned into movies, later on. Now, for some of you that didn't realize this, he was outed by a fan in 1985, and that kind of provided also the idea of the dark half. So the outing part gave him the idea, and then of course finding out about the twin in the womb, absorbing the twin in the womb.
So it's kind of like a dual thing.
Yeah, also kind of just, cinched it.
Duality seems to be a theme in the dark half. So yes.
Yes. And as we know, Thad Beaumont, who is our protagonist in the story, he kills his, did they ever say how he died? George Starr?
In the novel, no. Like in the novel he was writing, no. I think just by him coming out and having that interview with people
just
where he
him.
said he's dead. I'm not going to write under him anymore.
Okay.
So that was officially what killed him, which would trigger him actually not being dead.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I think.
Well, because Stephen King said that his pseudonym died. It was cancer of the pseudonym.
Oh, I see.
Which was dealing basically with his issues of drug and alcohol use. Stephen King really did have a problem with that.
And that's kind of in the story as well, because Thad was an alcoholic at one point, but mainly when he was writing under George Stark's name. So it's kind of like that was dipping into his darker half. And so not only is he obviously a recovering alcoholic, he's trying to put that whole side of him to rest.
Right. Well, also too, he was struggling with what Thad struggles with is like writing literary works for the sake of writing something really wonderful and great versus writing something for commercialism. And I read something, a couple of different sources that, he still really hasn't answered that question. To this day, it's like, do you give the masses what they want, and then make, a couple of bucks off of it? Or do you really write what you want to write, whether anybody reads it or not? Well, I mean, we would all love to say we wouldn't sell out, but you do have to pay your bills and you have to feed your family. So I guess when you are offered the opportunity to make some money off of, something that's a little more commercial, you do it.
Right.
And I do know, just taking writing classes in college, sometimes you get a serious writing teacher, and when, they ask you who your favorite writers are and you happen to mention Stephen King, they kind of like frown because, they don't think
He's
of him as a
popular.
literary genius or
Yeah.
anything. But I actually do think he's, a wonderful writer.
He is a wonderful
And he
writer.
tries different ways of writing. I don't know. He just seems kind of adventurous with his writing. He takes risks.
Mhm.
Does that mean that every book that he's written is one of my favorites? Of course not.
Right.
You can't hit it out of the ballpark all the time. But I think he's proven that, he can write well. It doesn't have to be a classic,
Not each time. I mean, you can't.
Right.
I mean, he's got so many like #1 bestsellers, but like you can't have them all be that. Like
Exactly.
At the end of the day, I do want to say before you go on with these awesome tidbits, guys, drop your opinion about Stephen King in the comments. Let us know what you think. You like him? You think he's a very, esteemed author? Like, what is your opinion watching now? And also, what is your opinion on The Dark Half? What star rating are you going to give the book? And then we'll dive into the movie a little bit as we talk about the book. But I want to find out what you guys thought about the book specifically first before we get into any of the movie stuff. And before you keep going on too, just to summarize, for if it's been a while since you guys read, obviously Thad Beaumont, as Kat alluded to, he's been writing under the name George Stark, but he decides, since he's getting blackmailed and threatened that someone's going to reveal this, he's just going to reveal it anyway and kill off George Stark, metaphorically, and not write under his name anymore. However, stuff starts to happen, people start to get killed, and then all signs point to Thad Beaumont that it was him. Dad's like, it's not me though. I swear it's not me. And there's like an alibi to prove it. And then we come to find out as the novel progresses that it's actually George Stark. How is this possible though? And that is what like the whole novel is about.
Right. Yes. That's the little supernatural twist, how you can manifest a ghost.
Were you confused? Well, see, it's kind of hard because you did watch the movie before reading the book. I was not confused, but at the same time, I'm confused on the very, very specifics of
how he manifested.
Yes.
Yes. I am the same way.
They tried to explain it in
the movie. They did. Yes, they did try
did.
to explain it. But it's almost like you almost wonder if like doppelgangers, is it possible that you could have like, you manifest it into being because you were so much that person that you caused them to exist.
It's weird.
I mean, that to me is like the supernatural element of it.
I forgot how she explained it in the movie, the professor. She said something like, the tissue is removed. It almost made it seem like the tissue was like not dead. Right.
And that's
but
one of
in the book, it's completely different than that.
Yes. Though. Yes. It's almost like they thought they had gotten rid of it, and that it was maybe part of it remained in him. But I mean, we clearly know that he's not actually committing the murders. Right, at first, I thought possibly he was going to be doing it as George Stark, even though I had seen the movie a long time ago. I mean, like in the 90s, I couldn't really remember, were they two separate people, or was it him actually? Because
in the movie, they make them look alike. In the book, they look different.
Yes, they do.
That's a big difference between the book and movie.
Yes, that is a big difference. But just getting back to what you were asking about the part in the book, Stephen King does have a part in the front of the book. It's not who he actually dedicates it to. It's just an author's note.
Oh, but I thought he did dedicate it to him.
No, he says, I am indebted to the late Richard Bachman for his help and inspiration. This novel could not have been written without him.
Oh, okay. That's really fun.
Yes. Yeah. And just to also let you know, because I was like, wait a second, when I was doing this research, he's written under Richard Bachman after this point. And he did. He wrote The Regulators, which was published in 1996 alongside of Desperation. It's actually the same characters that happen in two different universes, but Desperation is under Stephen King, Regulators is under Richard Bachman, and they were published at the same time. Wow. It was really cool. That is cool. So if you ever get a chance to read it. And then also 2007 was Blaze. Now, keep in mind, The Regulators surfaced because Richard Bachman's widow found it among his papers. Oh. And so, of course, they had to publish it. And then later on, Blaze was discovered. And
so he was still technically dead. Yes, but these things are being discovered.
He did not, come back to life.
I see.
And Stephen King did not, bring him back to life, somehow,
Here's an interesting thing. Colton says that this is his favorite Stephen King book and movie.
Wow, that's good because it's underrated. It really
The lady who sold me the book, my hardcover copy at the bookstore in Maine, which is why I bought it, because I wanted to buy a Stephen King book in Maine. She sold this. she sold this to me, and she was like, "I really just read this, and I don't know why I didn't read it sooner. Like, it's really underrated. No one talks about it. I really enjoyed it." I will say I did devour this really quickly. I also listened on audio and read along the whole time. But even listening at faster speeds, I felt like I was entertained the whole time. There was a part though to me, I'm not going to give it a perfect 5 stars personally. There was a part that felt like it dragged a little bit with them talking a lot. Like talking with the sheriff and like kind of speculating like, why is this happening? And the sheriff is like, I don't believe it's happening. And he's like, you still don't believe it? It's just a big back and forth.
Right. Well, and
so
that's
there was a point where it kind of got a little too much.
And that was actually where I think George Romero, who is the director of The Dark Half, he also did the screenplay.
He did tighten it up a bit.
He tightened it up, and I think that was kudos to him for that, because it kind of, followed the story pretty well. There are some, differences, obviously, but I have to say he tightened that up, and so it went a little bit quicker. I couldn't imagine, because it was a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, how are they going to pull this off? So I think he did a really great job with it.
I didn't like the movie. I'll just say it right now. After having read the book, I watched the movie and I was like, this is so different.
Yeah.
And they made Thad so angry.
Yeah.
And the character is not written angry. But it did make, you wonder that he had more of a dark half. He did seem like it did kind of make sense with the whole theme of the book in the movie, the way he was. It made a little bit more sense than.
Well, what I think the difference too is in the book, it seemed like Thad did not want to go back. He wasn't enticed by that lifestyle any longer. Like, he had made the commitment to his wife, and now he has
in the movie
twins,
he was tempted.
infant twins, and like it wasn't very tempting for him to go back and want to have that lifestyle. Which I think is probably the Stephen King coming out in Thad Beaumont, the book.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because he wanted to, because Tabitha King did an intervention for him. And that's why he ended up, putting that part of his past in the past, like to not ever do that again.
So he was not tempted like the movie version of
Right. The movie version seemed like he was more tempted, that it was like just at any moment he could slip and just really get into that lifestyle. Although once they were at the home, the little summer home, he seemed like he wasn't going to play the game, but I don't know. That's the difference that I had seen, that maybe what Thad went through was so traumatic when he was George Stalk that it wasn't worth slipping back into that.
Right. But I think the end of the book was a little frustrating too, because like Thad was doing his best. He had a plan all along on what to do to get rid of George Stark, and even said like, just go along with me, don't risk anything, whatever. And then the sheriff looks at him like he's an asshole afterwards. He's like, I hate you now, bitch. Like why? Like, I hated that. Like, why does he all of a sudden hate that? And like, even the wife is like,
yeah, but
like,
I have to say though, I did like the fact that Alan finally gets on board and realizes, yes, this is truly happening. Whereas it took forever for the sheriff in the movie. Like, it was like he was not convinced. And I'm like,
well, and the sheriff didn't even show up at the house. I mean, he took forever.
He wasn't like supportive at all. It was like, I'm gonna get you, Thad.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they weren't even friends, really. I mean, like in the book, they became kind of friendly.
But I just thought descriptions in the book were awesome, and I don't know, the whole part about when they open it up at the surgery, how they describe it was just incredible. And I did think that was one thing that they captured in the movie. And of course, George Romero, the makeup, was terrific when he was starting to decay. It reminded me of Zombie. The eyes and everything.
I think he was supposed to. Yeah, I do
because
think
he was dead. He was dead, literally supposed to be dead,
Right.
But I just found the fact that they had teeth and they had a small cavity in the tooth. I mean, just all that description was wonderful in the book. I mean,
frightening.
Yes.
No. I mean, I was digging the book like all the way, like from the beginning to like page. I think when did I stop the first night I was reading? I like read like 160 something pages at once. or maybe even more. I was reading a ton like the first sitting. Then the second sitting, I start off, I was all excited to get back to it. Then I'm like, yeah. But I was like, oh wait, it's more talking for a little while. But then it picked back up again. So that's the only reason why I can't give it a perfect score. And because at the end, I was so mad at the sheriff. I was like, why is he all hateful and bad now? Like he tried his best.
I think he did. And I mean, in the end,
And everyone has a dark half.
everybody does.
So what did he like? He accidentally so he's got this dark half, and he likes writing as George Stark. The dude doesn't think he's gonna make somebody come alive. The sheriff's acting like he did this stuff on purpose.
Right.
I'm very passionate about this. I don't know why the sheriff's all like, I don't like you.
Yeah.
Get away from me. Like it makes me upset. Just because why? It's so mean. Give the dude a little bit of the benefit of a doubt.
Well, you'll get to see if Alan Pangborn changes his tune, because he does appear in Needful Things. Just to let you know, he is going to come back when we read
better
him.
be nice
so he
and
may
friendly.
be totally different
We'll
the next
see.
time we visit him. Will be interesting to see.
It's not that far away from reading that.
No, October.
A few months.
Yeah, in a few months. So I like the fact that we will be revisiting that character to
Me
see
too.
and his wife.
All in the same year.
Yes,
It's
all
fun.
in the same year. So I mean, I don't know. I thought the book was great. There were quite a few things in it. There are some references. Ennsville is referenced in there, which is Dark Tower. Down here in Ennsville, where all rail service terminates.
I liked the dream sequences quite a bit, and it was a bummer we didn't really get that in the movie, because that could have been really cinematic.
Yeah.
That could have been really well done, especially with Romero directing. I'm just surprised they didn't decide to do the dream sequence.
Yeah, and it's crazy because George Romero and Stephen King collaborated on a couple of things together. They started in 82 with Creepshow. They did it again in 87 with
I love
Creepshow 2. I do also. 88 to 83 to 88, they were working on Tales from the Dark Side, and then 93 was the Dark Half. And I think he was supposed to do some other things, but George Romero had some trouble working with Hollywood studios. Either the funding wasn't there where it needed to be, or like they didn't really see his vision. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Silence of the Lambs came out around the same time. And I don't think the Dark Half did not do quite as well in the box office as, a movie like The Silence of the Lambs, obviously.
Well, I will say, so, I mean, maybe he didn't want to do the dream sequence because, his twist on the story, in my opinion, was almost to try to fool the audience more into thinking that it was Thad. Because you don't see George Stark for a long time. You don't get even... You just don't. I think he wanted the audience to have a doubt.
Well, it's almost
it was a separate entity.
Yeah, or it's also the fact is, was Thad going and changing into these clothes and acting as this character?
Yes, I think
was it multiple personalities?
So I think if you put the dream in there, you're kind of muddying the waters a little bit. And I think the whole spin he was doing was like, I want to actually make it seem like it's that half of him, and he's almost like got multiple personalities type of deal or something.
Exactly.
I do want to address this before we go on. Mr. Morningstar, he didn't join right away, so he doesn't know what my earrings and your shirt is. So your shirt, just to recap, it's The Walking Dead. It's like a skull with like zombie hands.
Yes, because today is the first day of May, which is also the first day of Zombie Awareness Month.
Yes, and this It's Gonna Be May earrings. It's NSYNC, so It's Gonna Be May instead of It's Gonna Be Me, but he says it like May. I'm very happy about these earrings, and I feel like I can only wear them the last few days in April and like today, and then afterwards it's like it's not really relevant anymore.
No, and then you have to wait.
I mean, it is May. It's not going to be May, so whatever. I also want to say that Mr. Morningstar answered our question about King. King spans all talent levels, sometimes literary and insightful, sometimes pulpy and trashy, but he certainly deserves more credit for being a solid storyteller who grows and experiments often. Very good point.
Yes, I really like that. Yeah, I really do. I mean, I love him, and I just feel like he should be, considered one of the greatest authors out there, in my opinion.
I mean, he's so prolific as well. I mean, and to be relevant for so long, that's not an easy thing to do.
Right. And
to change with the times and experiment, as Mr. Morningstar
that's the thing about it is, like, he does experiment. And, sometimes when you experiment, you hit the bullseye, and sometimes you don't. But, I mean, and it appeals to people in different ways. I mean, just like Colton said, this is one of his favorite Stephen King books and movies, out of all of the ones that he's read. And I think that's great. I mean, it is underrated.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because we've read 4 so far, including this one. So we read Misery, we read Gerald's Game, we read The Langoliers, and we read this one, The Dark Half. And so far out of the 4, I've liked Misery and this one the best. Now, Langoliers, it was good, but I liked it so much more because of the audiobook narration. Now, this narration, there wasn't anything overly special about it, so I liked this story. Langoliers, I didn't like the story as much as this one. It felt more sci-fi. So this one was really cool. It had some unique elements. It really made me think. It really made me wonder what was really happening, what was going on, and I really wanted to get to the end. So I will say, I do think it's underrated because out of the 4 so far, this one, of course, Misery is like the best one.
Yeah, out of the ones so far, I would say Misery is my number 1. Now, keep in mind, we've read 2 books so far that happen to be about writers. Now, Langoliers had a writer in it who helped them kind of solve the mystery of the Langoliers, you know, but
I love how he writes so much about writers.
Yes.
Obviously,
well,
write about what you know. I mean, you know,
exactly. But I mean, getting back to the movie, I was really surprised by the ratings. 59% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6 out of 10 on IMDb, and 79% for Google users. I mean, that's kind of high, don't you think?
It's very high. It's very high. And like I said, I didn't like it, so I feel really bad that I'm sitting here saying I don't like it, but a lot of people obviously do. It's just that having seen it right after reading the book, and then like so many stark differences, it just didn't match what I had in my mind about, from the book. And I think that's the problem sometimes when you do stuff. And I know
we've talked about that. That is a downfall of watching a movie directly after you finish reading a book, especially if you really love the book.
Yes.
Because what'll end up happening is you're sitting there too much comparing book and movie and what works and what doesn't.
I mean, I have 2 pages of comparison notes essentially. Like I'm like, this is not like the movie goes further back, not like oh, I didn't like the casting of the wife, and I like that actress.
Well, and I was going to say, yes, that was one of the things I was going to bring up when we talk about the movie.
I just did not think she did not feel like the character.
I mean, I love the fact that George Romero was the one that was directed, and of course, he's known as the godfather of, you know, the dead. You know, he didn't invent the zombie movie, obviously, but he really did popularize zombie movies.
Oh, yeah.
So I love the fact that, you know, his career started off with the legacy with the Night of the Living Dead, but then he was able to go on and write other horror movies as well. And he got to finally direct one, you know, for Stephen King. But I don't know. I mean, I thought that the casting was pretty well done, except I did not like the fact that they changed Raleigh, the professor, to Reggie. Yeah, and then it went from a guy to a girl. I didn't really, I don't know what the why they did that.
Me neither.
So I didn't really care for that so much. And I don't know if maybe, I don't know. I can't even figure out what the thing with that would be. And I really didn't care for I just thought whoever they picked to be Liz Beaumont would have been a little bit
softer.
Yes.
She was really harsh. And okay, so at one point she's screaming at the twins. This never happens. Where did that come from?
I know, and I cringed. I cringed at that. Not saying I've never fussed at my children, you know, or whatever. But it's one thing when you do something, but then when you see it done, you're like almost like ashamed if you've ever have fussed at your children.
I fussed at Jackson before, but like, of course, I hate doing it. I do feel bad doing it, but at the same time, she was like so harsh.
She was
like, she was overly harsh. I think like I'm not even.
And then they started crying so hard. I was like, oh,
well, you just shut up.
I don't know. I wasn't really sure if their chemistry, like there was some parts,
awkward. Yeah.
It at some points I was just like, I don't really believe that they're a couple.
Yeah.
You know, like she's a supportive of him. As in the book.
Like Liz believed him in the book right away. Liz was like there, like ride or die. She was all like right away. She's like, I believe you. Like she didn't have to be convinced. She knew. And it just seemed like they were so close. And even though I didn't even sense any kind of trouble in the book for the most part, even though they talk about how they had trouble, it just read differently to me, to where I see them on screen, it's just, they don't seem to go together. However, the endings where both things differ very much, the wife's all by his side in the movie at the end, whereas in the book, she's all like, your dark half, I can't take it now, even though I've been supporting you knowing this the whole time, and all of a sudden though, seeing you two together, I can't take it anymore. I don't know. I don't understand. Anyway, it's my big criticism.
But
with the book.
I mean, for the most part, I mean, I think it would have been different if we would have had two different actors. I want to give props to Timothy Hutton for playing both parts, because as an actor, that is extremely hard for you to have to play two different characters
Yes.
and have it meet in the middle of a final
Do you like
product or
that they used
whatever.
the same person, or do you wish they would have done two different
I
actors?
almost wish it would have done two different. I don't know. I'm like torn. Part of me almost wish it would have been different in the sense of how he was described in the book. He was described so much. He was different because remember, Thad, after having that surgery, was clumsy and, just not, he was kind of, very mild mannered, somebody that didn't seem like he was rattled very easily. And the way that George was portrayed, like he was just a bigger entity, he was a blonde. He was just so much more confident, macho, yes, that
and
kind
I
of
feel
thing.
like when he was dressed up as George Stark in the movie, I mean, he didn't seem that cool to me. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, but I
As
think
much
the
as he read
difference
cool
is, I think the
or
difference
confident.
is they made him that way because if you remember in the book, there was no like tissue that had been buried. Whereas in the
Yes.
movie, the tissue had been buried. And we're to think that when they buried him,
It like formed a person.
somehow when they killed him and went to the cemetery and mocked him and took all those pictures or whatever, something conjured him up to come back.
Do you like that they did that?
I don't know. I
don't know
think it's
either. I'm
too-
torn because at least you get an explanation how there's a physical entity. Where in the book you're like, how could this be? Like you're accepting it and you're like entertained about reading it, but at the same time, in the back of your mind, as a reader, I was like, but how though?
Well, it's
Like,
almost like in the book, it was like the ghost of the twin.
It was like a
is what
manifestation of
has-
the twin.
Yes, but it was a ghostly demon kind of like something that you would see if you went into a haunted house and the ghost was
Right.
left there. It's almost like the remnants lingered, but because he had this experience as writing him, and he would kind of turn into a different person when he was writing as him. But the minute he wanted to kill him, it's almost like a part of that still really wanted that entity within him.
Mhm.
So maybe it manifested, and that's where the supernatural part came out. Whereas in the movie, it was like there was something physically there that once he wanted to kill
outside of himself,
somehow that manifested and he came out as a man.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of explanation,
Still both supernatural, but
so Paul didn't read the book. So during the movie, I said, "Do you understand what's going on? Like, tell me what you think's going on." Like when we're like midway through, right? I think right before they started to explain, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I understand what's going on." He said it was a manifestation, and this is him guessing before it was explained in the movie. So he said, I think it's like, this manifestation, another part of him is dark half or whatever. And I think obviously he's got some kind of psychic link with this other half.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I was surprised that he picked it up because it was hard for me since I knew what was going on from the book. It's hard to look at it through like blind eyes. Obviously I know things about the story, so I just wanted to make sure that he was kind of getting it, that an audience member who would just sit into this film would understand.
I do think that having something that was actually physically buried in the crypt, the family crypt or whatever, makes sense, especially when you find out later on that he dug himself out of the grave.
Right.
That kind of does make sense, because if it was a ghostly entity, why would a ghost do that?
I don't know. I mean, it's like once you start to really dissect it, that's when I'm like, I don't know.
Right. It's like, okay, I accepted it up to this point, and then it's like, okay. But I think what it was is it didn't bother me until I saw how they portrayed it in the movie. And then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to kind of question it.
Guys, what do you think about, do you have any personal thoughts about, how they made it into like an entity? What was your explanation? Did you have a hard time buying it? Like Colton, since it's one of your favorites, like, why do you like it so much? Give us a little explanation about why it's your favorite. What parts do you like about it? Because I'd love to know and to be able to read that.
Now, I will say I do like the fact that he didn't take the easy way out and have Thad have like a split personality.
That would have
And
been too easy.
yeah, I was like, I'm glad
yeah,
he didn't
yeah.
do that, because then it makes it more frightening that you could actually conjure up your dark half to actually become a physical person, you know? So, I don't know. I think in some ways I would have preferred for him to look a little bit different from Thad. Um, I don't know. I mean, do you think it's scarier for him not to have it? I guess
I
maybe
mean,
in
for
some
his
ways
family, it's scarier because here's a guy who looks just like, if you're Liz, here's a guy who looks just like my husband, but he's evil. I don't know, you know,
I
like,
know.
he's so dark.
But
But I don't, so in that way, like, if you put yourself in her shoes, it's terrifying. But like, as an audience member, I guess it makes it confusing. But Paul wasn't confused. But to me, it makes it confusing.
but
Like,
you
is
see,
it him?
but you
Is
know
it
what I
him? Is
think
it a
it is though?
personality?
Yeah, but I think if you think about it, I think what led you to believe that is we only get glimpses of his shoes and his clothing, his car, that kind of stuff before we actually see his face.
Yeah.
And so I think for the longest, time, you're kind of thinking maybe he's in two different places, whereas in the book we know for a fact because his description was totally different.
Well, and he didn't have solid alibis in the movie. He did in the book.
Yes.
Like in the movie, he was in New York when someone got killed in New York. So I'm like, why are they making it so? And I think, like I said, that's what leads me to believe that they were going for
Yes.
an ambiguity.
And then all of a sudden, dun, dun, dun,
yeah.
this is what's
It's really not him.
Right.
You thought it was. So it was almost like they wanted to fool us. They wanted to twist it for the audience. And I will say, Paul was confused. He did not pick up on. Even though Thad went into that trance where he was writing, it said dissolving, falling apart, dying. When Paul saw George Stark with his face peeling off, he was like, "Why is his face like that?" He didn't get it.
Yeah.
He didn't absorb that.
And you see, that's where reading the book, you get the backstory, you understand what's going on.
Yeah, but I think as a viewer, that could possibly be confusing. Although technically, the preceding scene where it's like him writing would technically explain it. But I don't know if everyone who read I'm dissolving would automatically understand
right
his face falling off or kind of thing, because he's just kind of there and his like face is
it's almost like he's dead and then now he's trying to become alive, physically alive, because before he was just,
it's like he needs the writing to sustain his form, and then he starts to decay because he is dead after all, so the decay starts to take over again if I guess all of his mental energy that he channels through Thad is not flowing.
Right.
If that
and
makes sense.
I guess they were trying to show it too, because at one point Thad starts bleeding from his head, and then you notice that George's eyes start clearing.
It's almost like at that point it's gone so far. But like, why was it never? I guess because he was never physical before. He was always like just some like, mental part of him. But once he's a physical person, it's like one or the other can write. It can't be both.
Exactly.
Type of
and
thing.
Because he was dead. Technically, he was in the grave.
Well, you can't rob the grave from a soul. So one of them has to
right. And that's what was so terrifying about it, because Thad was willing to go as far as he needed to go, but it could have killed him, and then George could have taken over.
Yeah.
So that was like a.
Well, that's why I guess his wife was so upset in the book. Like, you were even gonna play along. I'm sorry, I cannot get behind the ending of the book. I was like, why is everyone so against poor Thad? I mean, if I was just sitting around and I was like, oh, I'm writing this bad character, I kind of enjoy it. Let me drink a little. I wouldn't think that it would turn into a person.
No.
It's not like he did it on purpose. That's what I don't get. So anyway, that's enough.
Well, but you almost wonder if, like, after he did the first time, it was so intoxicating to him that he kept on going, and there was a part of him that really didn't want to give George up. He would not have given. But think about it. No, I'm saying he would never have given George up had it not been for that fan coming out and trying to blackmail him.
Well, in the movie,
right?
In the book, I don't know if it's exactly implied that. I thought he was done writing his Stark.
I think he was, and he wanted to do better, but there was a part of him that also was a little afraid of letting him go,
which is very reminiscent of Stephen King. I think probably being afraid to let to write under his name again full time.
Right.
Just him.
Right. Exactly. Even though at that point, Stephen King had several really great books.
Right.
But there's some people that suffer from imposter syndrome for a very long time, even after success. Like,
or like what's expected of them type of thing. It's kind of a lot of pressure.
He also wanted to see if he could really write something different and people would like it just as much if he wrote under a different name. And I will say, he did sell books under Richard Bachman, but then they sold even more once it was revealed that that's who it was, because then
Right.
people were like, oh my gosh, let's
So
go
it didn't even
see.
really wasn't really the full test he intended.
I mean, even J.K. Rowling has done that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
she writes under, I think it's Richard Galbraith.
I actually don't know.
Yeah, it's like detective
Oh
stories
yeah,
or
I've heard about
whatever,
that. I don't know. I mean, because Harry Potter. I don't know if I could read another
Right,
thing
right.
like
But they're
that.
more adult than
Yeah.
Harry Potter. But talking about the movie, I want to just briefly say something about the cast, because you know
Yeah.
me, I always have to bring something in about the actors. Timothy Hutton, of course, plays Thad Beaumont and George Stark. He is an Academy Award winner. He actually won an Academy Award Best Supporting Actor for Ordinary People
I actually
in
have
1980.
I've not seen that movie. I've got to watch it.
It's a long time. He plays Conrad Jarrett. So he was 20 years old when he won that.
Wow.
Yeah, so kudos to him. He's been acting since 1965. He's still acting now. I believe he was in a TV program called Leverage or something like that. I haven't really seen him in much of anything
Me neither.
in the last few years, but that doesn't mean anything because I don't watch tons of television, and
Me
we're pretty
neither.
specific about what we're watching for movies. And I don't know if Timothy Hutton plays in a lot of horror movies.
Probably not.
Also, Timothy Hutton, just to let you know, he appears in Secret Window, which is also about a writer. We almost chose that. Yes.
Yeah.
He plays the love interest of Mort Rainey's estranged wife. Mort Rainey is played by Johnny Depp in that film. But it's about another writer. He just doesn't play the writer. Liz Beaumont is played by Amy Madigan. She's been acting since 1977. She's still currently acting. She is married to Ed Harris.
Currently still?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Who plays Alan Pangborn in Needful Things.
Oh, that's funny.
Now, how is that? That's really cool. Funny. Which we're reading in October.
And Ed Harris makes a little appearance in The Stand as well. And I believe she acted in Uncle Buck, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, she was in Field of Dreams. She's been in several different movies. Amy Madigan. Yes.
I'm going to look it up.
I like her as an actress, but like you, I kind of saw somebody different.
I did not picture such a harsh portrayal. Like, just Liz seems so supportive for the most part in the novel.
She seems supportive, but she was also a little feisty. I love the fact that she tried to hide the scissors. And and then he knew that she had the scissors when he was like asking her so he could cut whatever it was.
And she had a sense of humor, and I felt like it was all missing. It was very flat and one-dimensional in the movie.
And like I said, I don't think the chemistry was there between Timothy Hutton and Amy Madigan. I mean, there were some scenes where they were sweet and they seemed like it, but at the same time, they just didn't seem like they matched.
I totally agree.
With that.
100%.
Sheriff Alan Pangborn is played by one of my favorite character actors, and that is Michael Rooker.
Yep. We've got a show and tell in a little while.
He's been acting since 1986. He's still currently acting. He's one of my favorites. He plays in Slither, which Kelsi is going to watch that for the first time in May as one of her zombie movies. Yep. I watched it again last year, but I might possibly watch it again.
She's tempted.
Just to watch it because you're watching it so we can talk about it. He also is Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy, the blue guy. He's good friends with James Gunn, and both Guardians of the Galaxy and Slither were directed by James Gunn. In fact, James Gunn was also married to Jenna Fisher from The Office, and she makes an appearance actually in Slither. Also, Michael Rooker is in The Walking Dead.
Of course.
He was Merle, Daryl's brother, and I got to meet him at Comic-Con one year.
Look how cool, guys.
Yeah, he is super, super, super nice. That's my son, Andrew. And he was in New Orleans. Super nice guy. Was so excited about taking pictures with people. He talked to people. He was really down to earth. I mean, he just seems like a humble guy. And we got to visit his panel, and he got to talk about, being on The Walking Dead, talking about his time there. So I like him for the fact that he is an actor. He's getting more well-known as time goes on, but he's still humble. Like, he still appreciates. Right. He doesn't act like, any kind of a diva star or anything like that.
He just looks cool. He just looks like when you look at him, he just looks like a cool person.
Yeah, he is very cool. So, one of my favorites. Then Shayla Beaumont is played by Beth Grant, and she's been acting since 1979. She's still currently acting. In fact, I just saw her in Willy's Wonderland with Nick Cage, which was a really crazy movie with Nick Cage. I mean, what movies nowadays aren't crazy?
I know. Nick Cage is kind of
but Willy's Wonderland was really bizarre because he had no dialogue. I mean, he grunts and he makes noises, but he has no dialogue. He does not speak at all in the entire movie.
Wow.
It's crazy. She plays a sheriff in that movie, but
I think you told me about that movie. I have to see
she's had a very extensive career. She's a face you wouldn't forget. She's like one of these people, like I've seen her in something before. She has an extensive credit list of film and television. She also plays Melvina in The Office. She was Dwight's girlfriend at the dinner party. I don't know if you remember that episode where Michael and Jan.
Oh, the older babysitter?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So I was like,
he brings his babysitter. Yes, I remember.
and her name is Melvina, and it's played by cool. Beth Grant. So I just thought, the actors, all wonderful actors. In fact, Amy Madigan was actually nominated for a film, in her career, an Academy Award. So she's a wonderful actress.
I just think
different.
She is the girlfriend of John Candy's character in Uncle Buck. So she was, that's who I thought it was. And she's harsh in that too. So I think she plays a more feisty, like angry, like, spicy character. Whereas you were saying Liz, the character does have some spice to her, but it's in a different way. Or at least I pictured it and read it in a different way.
Yeah, and also I think I don't think it's a negative. I mean, her spice was a little bit different than the spice, of Liz in the movie, I think. Like Liz never gets angry with the babies. If anything, she's thinking about how I'm going to protect the babies.
More that's like the thing she's thinking about the most, and that's so apparent in the book.
Yes.
Whereas in the movie, I mean, I'm not saying she's not going to protect her kids, but it's just like,
it just doesn't come across the same way.
No, especially like right before she gets taken, she's screaming at him.
Right.
It's like the last thing you see.
Which I can understand, being frustrated and worried and fearful and all that it just like comes out and you're directing it to the wrong person, whatever. But at the same time, I just thought I don't know, I was taken aback by it. And it's one of those things that you just don't remember the first time you've seen something so long ago.
Yeah.
I
know Colton says, the movie's a little bit different, but also so much more. So he thinks it adds, layers.
Yeah, I mean, I do. There were things that I did enjoy about. I mean, I thought the whole cinematography with the birds was wonderful. I like that they were like present, like
when they used real birds.
See it. Yeah. Well, no, they did use real birds in it.
No, I said when they used real birds, I liked it. I didn't like the CGI birds.
Yes. Well, we know how you feel about CGI.
I know. I'm very picky. I'm sorry. I'm very picky. I totally trashed I Am Legend last May for the CGI. I was like, I used to love this movie, and then I watched it again, and I was like, the CGI. I'm an ass. Just forget me, guys. I mean that. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm way too snobby about certain things in movies. I'm sorry.
That's the film. That's her background in film coming out.
However, I can still appreciate cheese. And you
yes,
cannot.
I know. That's
movie
true.
Cheese.
That's
I love.
true.
She hates movie. Like, I must have the best acting. That is good.
Say that again.
It's not even like you at all. I must have the best acting my films that I watch.
It doesn't have to be Shakespearean or anything. However, it does make it much more enjoyable.
I'm just like, yeah, let's get some friggin' the movie Dolls, or like let's get some Sleepaway Camp, where they're just
Sleepaway Camp is probably the worst acting I've ever seen in my life.
Come on. It's fun.
I don't think you like it for the acting. You like it for the other part of it. Be honest.
Well, I mean, I like it for the slashing, the acting. I can just accept that it's terrible, but I admit it.
I mean, it needs to flow. It doesn't mean that they come back after they've shot the scene and said, let's do some reaction shots now. Act like you're terrified because you see a man that had boiling water fall on his face. And then the next time they go to you, you're like,
it's just a little bit closer. It's like, we need you to hold this reaction for about 5 minutes now.
And we're gonna keep cutting to you looking the same way.
I like that personally. So I mean, I'm a snob about some things, but I can accept that like it's nothing. I don't know why. It doesn't really make sense, does it?
That's where your ridiculousness comes out.
I know, it's true.
Oh, okay, well, but there are so many things I think that I don't know. I also liked the fact that you got to see the murders, and I think it wasn't harsh to where you had to have all the blood and gore.
There was more gore in the book, I think.
Yes, there is. But you still got the message. Like, I really did like how they did the silhouette of the first guy who was murdered. Like, you
Mhm.
know exactly what happened to him just
Mhm.
based on it. Like, it didn't have to be in your face. But the fact they did the silhouette after, you see all this blood everywhere, you see the reactions of the policemen coming in.
Do you remember what it's rated, the movie? If
Oh
it's
my
R or
gosh.
PG-13?
I would think it would have to be R. I didn't check that,
I'm gonna
honestly.
check it
I just
now.
assumed it would be rated R just because of the content and the
It
violence.
wasn't as heavy. Like I said, it's almost like they cut stuff on purpose.
Hmm.
Come on, show me the rating. Keep going. I'm gonna look up while you talk.
It did take about 2 years for them because I want to say whoever was doing the movie, they went bankrupt or something.
Really?
So I think that took a little
The
time.
production company?
Yeah.
Or studio or whatever?
Yeah, I think
That's
so.
very weird. It is rated R. I'm very surprised because I thought they would go all out for each killing, but maybe not.
Yeah, but also too, I believe they had language. I mean, wasn't there some language?
Yeah, they
in
might have
there?
dropped some F bombs.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, specifically remember, but I know Thad was very angry at points. Way angrier than in the book. He was
Yes.
like, ah! I was like, okay, I get it. He was very mad.
Yeah. But I do like the premise of how things come about. One of the fun facts that I found actually happened to be in my DVD.
Oh, like a
This
little
little
slip
pamphlet,
cover.
yeah, that was in my DVD, was that it's called And the Face of Evil. Stephen King came by the character name of Stark from a childhood fascination with serial killer Charles Starkweather. Having filled a scrapbook with newspaper clippings about the murderer, King calls him a boy's first glimpse of the face of evil. I love that guy. I thought he was cool as a moose, as we used to say. My mother was ready to have me placed in analysis because he was like that. But I went and did a deep dive on Charles Starkweather. And boy, boy, boy,
He's bad.
he was terrible.
Like real bad?
Yes. He is what is called an American spree killer. He was 19 years old. He murdered 11 people in Nebraska and Wyoming from December of 57 to January of 58. It was like
So
60
he started
days he was
killing
at
at
large.
19, or he was
19.
discovered at 19?
No,
Do you
he
know?
was killing at 19.
Oh, okay.
10 of those 11 people were murdered between January the 21st and the 29th.
So wow, it was like really quick succession.
Yes, quick. Which January 29th was the date of his arrest. He was accompanied by his 14-year-old girlfriend.
Oh my
Her name
God.
was Carol Ann Fugate. He was actually a dropout when they started dating, and most of the victims he killed were with a shotgun. It was terribly brutal. There was parts where I had to kind of like skim over because of the things that he did. In fact, some of Fugate's family were victims.
Oh wow.
Yes, it's terrible. He surrendered. The only reason he got caught was he surrendered. There were 3 policemen chasing him, and one of them fired the gun and it hit his windshield and it caused the glass to shatter, and a piece of the glass cut him. And because he was bleeding, profusely or whatever, he pulled over because he was afraid he was going to bleed to death.
Oh.
Okay, even though he's like killed all these people, he's like worried about himself dying with he like surrenders so that he could get medical care, basically.
Oh, geez.
He was tried in Nebraska instead of where he was from in Wyoming. He was sentenced to death, and he was actually executed on June 25th, 1959 by electric chair. They said that he was the last execution by electric chair for many years, and then they reinstated the electric chair. His girlfriend, on the other hand, received a life sentence because she was considered an accomplice. And she even tried to say that she had nothing to do with the death of her mom and stepdad. And I think it was their child together. So it was like her step sister, but she was only 2 years old.
Oh!
How terrible. He even killed a dog. I was like, it's like terrible.
He
but
really was bad.
He did. He just went on a rampage. And if you got in his way, he basically killed you. I mean, that's
Wow.
just how it worked out. She served 17 and a half years in jail. She was supposed to serve like anywhere from 30 to 50 years, but because she was,
Like a minor?
well, no, because she was for good behavior.
Oh.
They went ahead. She paroled in June of 1976. She's still alive.
Oh God.
She's 78 years old. As of right now, she did end up getting remarried. She moved to Michigan. She did try to get pardoned because she didn't want to be associated with the murders or whatever, but the victims' families petitioned that she not get pardoned because they wanted her,
Yeah.
she was part of it.
Yeah.
Whether, she actually killed anyone or not, she was still there. She could have probably prevented a lot of deaths by not going along with him.
Yeah.
But so many different movies and television programs have actually used that case either loosely or, modeling off of them on their spree or whatever. Natural Born Killers,
That's a great
1994
movie. Yeah.
was based on this
Wow.
couple. Also, there was a Criminal Minds episode that was loosely based
Oh,
on
wow.
them. So a lot of different, there's been literature
And it
written.
inspired a name for
Yes,
Stephen King.
yes.
Wow, that's cool.
Can you believe that? But anyway, that was my deep dive on that. Not that I, glorify serial killers or whatever. It's always
Just
amazing to
interesting.
me how people can just have such a disregard for the people. I mean, of course, they said he was bullied and this and that, and his childhood wasn't the greatest. He didn't have a good relationship with his father. But the fact to just be able to take away human life and
it's
in such a
terrible.
violent way,
But it's interesting to see where the name came from and
Yes.
why that fits with
Yes,
the character.
it does. I mean,
Like
just
a lot.
very, very interesting. And then also, too, I wanted to tell you about the birds. There were 4,500 cutthroat finches that were used to represent the purveyors of souls from the here to the hereafter. And it required 100 pounds of bird seed and 12 to 15 gallons of water each day.
Oh my God.
At one point, 2,000 of the birds were required to fly through several rooms of the Beaumont summer house. So that part where they were coming into the house,
they used real birds.
They had real birds.
Wow.
And I did notice that at the end of the film, I like to watch the credits till the end. I
We
like to
watched
look
them
at
till the end.
I
Yeah.
like to look at the jobs and different, because when you work in film and television, I mean, there are a lot of people that work on getting that to the big screen.
It's true.
So I like to see where movies and television programs are filmed.
Right.
But at the end of it, they had talked about like there were no birds,
harmed
harmed in this. But it said all of the locales in the dogcraft were chosen from areas in and around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is George Romero's hometown.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was pretty neat. So
I
anyway.
mean, in the back of the book, he does talk a little bit about Alexis Machine, who George
yes.
Stark, that's like one of the characters in George Stark's novel, how he named it after like a real life fictional character. Oh, real life. It's an actual character in a different fictional book by a different author.
Yes.
So it says, readers of Dead City by Shane Stevens will recognize it as the name of a fictional hoodlum boss in that novel. So yes, Alexis Machine. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. I just think it's neat how they come about getting names. Names are fascinating to me because sometimes names are easy to pronounce. Sometimes they're hard. Sometimes, you're like, that just seems like such a weird name for that character. And then when you find out that maybe the name, the first and last name are like two different people that come together, or like they're paying homage to somebody, or it happens to be somebody's relative. Because, they would do that a lot of times on The Office. Is they would use one of the actors' children as a name for somebody.
That's cool.
So I just think all that is really fascinating how
Me
they come up with
too.
that process, because I would think naming a character would be difficult.
Yeah.
You try to make sure you don't have a name that's already out there, and then you want to make sure you have a name that's not something that would equate people, like especially if you're writing about a terrible person. I mean, can you imagine if you really liked you named your child that, and now every time you call your child's name, you think of that terrible character?
Yeah. Or, I mean, you can get in legal trouble if you use a name that's like exactly like a person's.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I know Kramer, like from Seinfeld, the character's named after like a real Kramer, I believe. I can't remember the specifics, but he tried. So they kind of mirrored this whole situation in an episode where Kramer gives a tour, and because he's trying to like say that he lived Peterson's life, like he sold his life story to Peterson. Peterson passed it off his. He's like, come to my tour, I'm the real Peterson. And so a guy named Kramer did the same thing about the Seinfeld Kramer. I'm the real Kramer, and he tries to go on tours and stuff. So I think like they asked his permission, but like it was kind of a dicey situation because he was trying to profit off it at the same time. So I don't know. You got to be careful with even names. Copying that like completely. That's why a lot of times they try to change it a little at least. But we talked about a few differences in the book versus movie. Do you have any more that we didn't cover already?
Well, first of all, Homer.
There's a bunch.
Yeah, Homer.
Yes. Oh, yes. He was the photographer randomly.
Yes, and in the book, the photographer was a woman, and she came from New York because she was one of the ones that got killed. I do think they kind of that was where they kind of tightened it up.
Yeah, because there was a lot of explanation about why Homer was attacked and how he just happened to. There was a lot of explanation about how Homer got killed.
Right,
and then quicker here.
Where it was quicker in this point. What I thought was interesting too is his prosthetic in the book was an arm. I thought about you when I was watching the movie because I was like, this is the kind of scene that Kelsi would love, is the leg hanging out the door.
Oh yeah, I did like that. That was cool.
So he was beaten with his arm in the book, but he was beaten with his leg in the movie.
Well, obviously, Sark had to go back for the leg to use it. It's like, why are you leaving it on? Like the first thought was like, why are you leaving it there? You're about to beat this dude with it, or at least I thought he was.
Yes. Also, too, we talked about George's origin story. Okay,
different.
You got a ghostly twin more so in the book, whereas you actually have matter, organic matter that was buried, and the parents knew. Right,
the parents knew about this twin that was basically taken out of Thad's head, whereas in the book the parents
the
did
whole
not
thing
know.
with the doctor as well, the fact that
was a huge difference.
Yes, big difference, because the doctor wasn't even in town, like and Thad was not the one that contacted the doctor.
No, it's like the sheriff didn't want to be helpful, didn't even believe him at all. Right. It was Thad going to see the doctor.
But again, if you think about it, putting Thad in that position where he's checking the files and everything, then George comes in and kills the doctor. It also makes it look like Thad killed the doctor.
Exactly.
Because there were witnesses.
Gives
and all
a little bit more tension type of deal. Yes. I totally saw that too. I mean, I guess I was okay with the doctor thing, except, he just so happens, to get killed at the wrong moment.
Right.
Anyway, but at least he got to find out about
the
tumor before he got killed. Because otherwise, if George had just been a few minutes earlier, he wouldn't even known he had like a twin.
Well, and I think the whole thing of changing the professor, I'm not really sure why they did that. I preferred the professor that was in. Nothing against the woman who was in the movie.
I did like her,
but
pipe.
I did like the professor in the book better, and I also liked how he ended up losing the police officers. In the book.
I like that too, where he didn't even have to really do that in the movie very much.
But again, I think it's to put more, and also to put more suspicion on Thad.
Yeah, it's like it's really him. It could really be him doing it, type of deal. Yeah, I agree with that. Another thing that was a big difference to me. So right in the beginning of the movie, you see when Thad starts to have the seizures and is affected by the tumor, he's writing. It's only we don't know for sure. It's only speculated that he might have started to suffer the tumor, the effects of the tumor when he started writing in the book. Like it's implied. We don't. He doesn't say I definitely started writing and then I had these tumors. In the movie, he's writing, and the mom even says, "Could this be because he's writing and in the dark and squinting, type of deal?"
Exactly.
So in the movie, he's definitely writing, and that's what kind of triggers. We come to later find out it's what triggers the growth. Of the twin that was absorbed,
which is not the same. Yes,
yeah, it's only implied in the book, never said outright that it was because of the writing that kind of made it grow.
Right. Well, and also too the relationship between Thad and Liz with Alan Pangborn is more like they know each other a lot better in the movie. In the book, they don't so much. He knows of Thad because Thad spends time at the summer home, and in the movie it's almost like they've known each other
they're like Alan, what are you doing here? Like she says right when she sees him at the door, there's no need for her to pause and try to remember who it is. She knows right away who it is.
Yes,
Liz.
Yeah. She's I thought that was the difference in the relationships. I think was a major difference. I did like it better that Alan kind of figured out as he went on, but knew, even though all evidence was pointing to Thad, he also knew that it was virtually impossible for it to be Thad. And he was trying to figure out how that could be possible.
Right. All right, let's what other differences do you have? I also want to know what you rate the book.
Well, that just the cabin scene.
Oh yeah, that was
very
a lot
different.
Yeah, I mean the sheriff for one, not even being there for the most part in the movie.
To me, that built a lot of suspense. I mean, obviously, I know that Alan lives because he appears in Evil Things, which is after the fact. I mean,
but we don't know if he's going to finally accept what happened in the movie, and we don't know what's going to happen to Thad in the movie.
Exactly, we don't.
We can only speculate. Will he get away with this? Is he still going to jail? We
Mm-hmm.
don't even know.
Now, I will say, I really did love Thad's writing nook in the movie.
Oh my God!
I was like so Scooby-Doo-ish.
Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have a layer like that.
I would
have the bookcase.
Yes. I was like, I need that because then I could still have posters, and my door would be the bookcase.
I know. I was just like, that looks so cool. I wanted that in my house.
I wanted that room. Yeah, I felt the same way when I saw that. I was like, ooh, that's a cool.
Now,
room.
I do have to say, I thought it was terrible that his poor whole house had to be like destroyed in order to like cover the evidence, or whatever. And then I think that Alan accepts the fact there's no way in hell he's going to be able to explain to anybody this, because think about it.
In the book,
there is a trail of blood, for everyone that was killed in New York City. And then Homer, they've got to come up with something, which you don't even know. Like the ending to me, the movie was so abrupt.
It was
just like, okay, they're going to live happily ever after this. I think the book leaves you knowing that they're going to have a lot of questions that they're going to have to answer. And it's not going to be easy for them anytime soon. I just kind of felt like that, whereas at the end of the movie, it was sort of like, okay, this is over with and their lives are going to be so much better. And, the only thing I would like to know is, what did they write next? Did Thad finish the book he was currently working on? Did it become a bestseller?
Did he give up
writing? Take time off? Did he decide to write something totally different?
Did they get divorced? I mean, because there was tension at the end of the book between Liz and Thad.
Yes.
And, she knew for sure now that was always a part of him. That George Stark was always there in a way.
Well, and also too, it makes you kind of, I don't know, it kind of makes you wonder. I understood he absorbed the twin part of it, but is it possible that there is still a remnant of that twin to where he could conjure him up again?
So is he really
like if
safe?
He ever got desperate again?
Yeah, you could easily have a sequel, I think, where he pops back up.
I just kind of felt like, if he really wanted to, he could have, because what if they would have gotten divorced and Thad had all this alimony and child support to pay, and
he needs a better novel,
and he couldn't write what he wanted to write. I mean, I can't imagine him just being happy teaching school. Maybe he would have, but
yeah. It's a great sequel. You just wrote the sequel.
I don't know. That's what I just kind of think,
Arlene is joining us from the UK.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
We have two UK people, right?
No. Colton
just has the UK hardcover.
Yes, of the book. He said it's beautiful. Have you seen it?
No, I have not. We'll have to look and see. If you want to see some truly bad acting, watch Hobgoblins 1 and 2.
Should add it to my list. I should make you watch it. Just kidding. You'd be like, I hate you.
That might have to be something we put on our list for October.
We're always looking for horror movie
always. So thank you, Colton. We're going to put that on our list for sure.
Yeah, Colton's awesome. I would definitely want to see some bad acting for fun. The Dark Half UK hardcover. I'm going to look this up.
Well, while you're looking that up, I just want to tell you that, I referred to this wonderful book that Kelsi got for me. It's called Stephen King, American Master. It's all kinds of facts about Stephen King and his work. And I found this and I want to share. I thought Kelsi had an older copy and I forgot that she was able to find a copy similar to mine when she went to Maine. And when I read the story, you'll see why. Okay. So bear with me, guys, as I read this. This is called The Dark Half Phone Number Story. And this is by Gerald Winters, who is the proprietor of Gerald Winters and Son Booksellers in Bangor, Maine. Ooh. So when Stephen King was writing The Dark Half in 1989, he came to the part of the story where Sheriff Alan Pangborn needed to speak with a Dr. Pritchard in Wyoming, the doctor that had treated a suspect of his when he was a child, Thad Beaumont. Alan left a message on his answer machine requesting that he call him back as soon as possible, as it was an urgent matter. The message included, please call me collect at the Orano State Police Barracks, 207-866-2121. Thank you. Stephen King knew he was writing about a police station in his nearby Orano, Maine. So why not get the real number, which is exactly what he did.
Oh, no.
It was there in the phone book in bold type. What happened after the book was published was anything other than expected. Constant readers from all over the world started to call the number. And why not? It was in Stephen King's book. I'm getting goosebumps. Look. Could there be a coded message to surprise callers or a mystery person that was just curious if anyone would call? No, it was the Orano State Police, and specifically Dan Lawrence, the dispatcher. Dan fielded calls from Montana, Florida, California, and as far away as Japan, the UK, and Australia.
Wow.
Why not? It's only an international call to their favorite author's home state. Many callers told Dan they would be vacationing in Maine in the summer of 1990 and asked whether they could visit him for his autograph. Finding the humor in the situation, Dan located the passage in Mr. King's latest novel, and sure enough, he saw his number on page 210, which is in chapter 16. So, of course, right away,
I looked at my
checked,
copy,
okay?
and it's in my copy.
It is. We have that number. Dan felt the need to write a letter to the editor at Bangor Daily News, but like Mr. King, he never realized the chain of events that would transpire from that simple act. He got a chance to visit his favorite author's office and receive an inscription in his personal copy. Mr. King apologized for his oversight, and true to his word, he changed the number in the later printing of the paperback. So, guys, if you have a copy of The Dark Half, we would love to know what your phone number is,
like the
on
paperback.
page 210, because it says a later printing of the paperback.
Wow.
So if you have a paperback copy,
not a first printing probably, but like a later printing.
Oh gosh, if y'all could check, because that is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That you could have the same book, but they ended up changing the phone number because of all this publicity that it ended up getting. Could you imagine becoming an instant celebrity? Because
well, I'm surprised that it didn't cause trouble for like the police force. Like, you know, people trying to call in, but there's so many other calls coming in. But like the guy seemed to be kind of okay with it.
Right. Well, he became like a little celebrity.
Yeah, autographs.
I
like
mean,
people
think
wanted
about
his
that.
autograph.
I know that's incredible to me. I love stuff like that.
I love that book has so much info. I did a good job.
This book is incredible. So anybody interested, this is by Stephen Spignesi.
And I just found that at Barnes and Noble. It was like the last copy. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blind all of you out there.
Yeah, I thought that's a great story.
Great story. I loved it because I'm thinking to myself, a lot of times, I mean, think about it. Remember that song? 8675.
Yeah, and that number kept getting called.
Yes, and then I think it was a pizza place or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know what it was, but they got annoyed.
Yes. So I mean, you think about that. I mean, how crazy is that?
It's pretty cool
that he actually used a real phone number.
He should have thought
and
twice.
Then something. But hey,
here's the hardcover.
Oh, that is beautiful
cool.
Compared to ours. Yeah, I have to say, Colton, your cover looks a lot nicer
is that
than
it, Colton?
ours.
Is it that one? Because this is cool with the tombstone. I like that.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I had that version as well.
That is really neat.
I mean, the Dark Half, it just says that like all it has is, some fog. I mean, I don't know what this is, but it's like fog or something. I think the UK one's a little bit better.
Yeah, I like the UK version. And I think that's also very interesting is how they change the cover.
Oh, I love different editions.
Books, because they do that with comic books also. They have variants. And so like depending on what comic book your store or your outlet gets, or if you order online, you might only get one version of it.
Right.
Entertainment Weekly magazine also would do that. They would have different covers of magazines.
I think I remember that, like, they're different stars on different ones. Especially if they're talking about the same show, it's like different actors from the show. Yeah. Like the Beatles copies, I think there was different Beatles on them before.
Yeah, I know they've done
different
different ones, like when
magazines,
they did
like
the
Time.
Avengers, they had different Avengers on the cover,
Yeah.
you know, from their photo
That's
shoot.
cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I only have one more little tidbit.
Give it to us.
It's about the psychopomps. Of course, I like anything that has to do with mythology,
Yeah.
you know, or old stories. And it is true what Raleigh slash Reggie says between the book and the movie about the psychopomps. So I did a little deep dive on that. They are actually creatures, and this comes from the Greek, just like they said, creatures, spirits, angels, or deities in many religions whose responsibility is to escort newly deceased souls from earth to the afterlife. And that's why the sparrows came up.
Right.
Their role is not to judge the deceased, but to guide them. Frequently, they appear on funerary art. They're
Oh.
depicted at different times and in different cultures as anthropomorphic entities, which I had to look that up. That's human traits that are given to non-human entities.
So like human
Like if
traits
you-
for animals.
or wind or
Oh
anything
yes,
like that.
anything that's
Yes,
not
anything like that.
living. I mean, not human.
Exactly. So a lot of times psychopomps are deer, horses, dogs, ravens, whippoorwills, sparrows, etc.
So
Like if you think
psychopomps
about
are
it,
not always birds.
not always. And I'm almost wondering, like in The Omen, when Damien sees the dog, at that point, was that a psychopomp?
Maybe.
You know, you just
that's a
wonder
good
about
thing,
that
yeah.
because they kind of appear when, you know, somebody's about to die and have to go to the afterlife. They're seen as birds, often in huge masses, which is what we saw in the film and read in the book. They're waiting outside the home of the dying.
Oh.
So that is why, and
George starts dying.
love the imagery of all the birds and how when he was driving down the road to get to the house, how they were just moving out of the way and all you could see
and
was,
he didn't want to run over them in the book. He
but
was like
how
scared.
they once and how Alan's car, Dad couldn't even see it because it was covered with birds. I just thought that was so eerie and creepy. That would have been really scary to see. And it's found in ancient religion, modern religion, psychology, and popular culture. And I wasn't going to list everything, but just to kind of give you some examples. Like, for example, the Egyptian god Anubis, he would be considered a psychopomp from like ancient religion.
Okay.
Michael the Archangel, which is a Christian, you know, from Christianity, he would be considered more modern religion psychopomp.
Okay.
In psychology, the mediator between the unconscious and the conscious, and they say it would either be like a old wise woman or an old wise man, you know, could act like that, or maybe possibly an animal. And then in popular culture, so besides the dark half, if any of you have ever seen The Crow, both in the comic book series and in the movie, the crows were considered the psychopomps.
Oh, I see.
In literature, they've appeared in a story by H.P. Lovecraft. They've appeared in a story by Hans Christian Andersen called The Little Matchbook Girl, I believe. So even in the Black Panther, there is a psychopomp, which is Bast, B-A-S-T. I just find all that fascinating because I love learning about that. And it just goes that extra level of knowing the research that goes into writing a story, like the real information that's inserted into this fictional story.
It's fiction, but there's some truth behind some of the elements, which
Yes,
I really like a lot. It's
I do
very
too.
interesting.
And I just found that was very interesting why the sparrows came. You know, the whole time, like what? Because sparrows to me look like cute little birds.
Yeah, nice birds, but then they rip a guy apart and bring him to hell.
I know. Now,
somewhere.
I did think with him getting broken apart was a little cheese ball, but I mean, what are you going to do?
In the movie?
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's kind of hard to do that, but it was definitely cheese ball in my opinion. Also, another cheese ball part, the pipe. The professor was like, let me research the sparrows. Puts the pipe in. Yes, I think I have a text about this.
Yeah.
And then later she's smoking it. That was a little cheese ball.
But I
the
also
pulling out of
do
the
think,
tooth, I think was a little cheese ball.
Yeah, I also do think though, unless you read the book, you don't understand really the importance of the pipe. You know, because of him, it's like almost like it's he has it, but he's not actually smoking it because he could actually die from smoking it. So I don't know. It's I overall, let's put it this way. I gave the book 5 stars. I loved it.
So you liked it.
I liked it. It's hard for me, you know me, it's hard for me with ratings, but if it's a book that I really thoroughly enjoyed, thoroughly entertained me. And I pretty much liked the characters. I even, as bad as George Stark was, I liked him as a villain.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I thought he was brutal. I thought he was scary. The whole scene of when he gets to Miriam's apartment and grabs her in. And I think they did a wonderful job in the movie showing that, the suspense and the tension. And let me tell you, even though I knew that that was going to happen, I jumped.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, when is it going to happen? There was a couple of times I jumped because I just was like, oh my gosh, when is going to happen? Now, I have to say, I did think it was kind of funny when the Donaldson guy, when he was like slicing him up, he chopped his ponytail off. And
oh, I love that. Yeah, that was so funny. I was like, yeah, that needs to go. Whether or not he's going to die.
This poor man's getting murdered, and then I'm chuckling because the ponytail gets chopped up. But that just goes to show you the humor of George Stark.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, he was
saucy.
Yes,
a little
yes.
bit,
And I do. Sense. And I that's just, I don't know. It's like I didn't like him because of the terrible things he did.
Oh, it makes
but
sense.
I thought he was well written. And so that's what 5 stars definitely for the book. What about you?
I at first thought it was going to definitely be a 5-star read. That first sitting, I was like, I love this. I can't wait to get back to it. When I got back to it and it took a little bit longer to get back into it, I was like, okay. And then the ending where I was so mad that they were all so mad at that. And I was like, but why though? So it's a 4-star. But that means I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I almost thought about giving it a 4.5 because, like I said, it was a long book, but I felt like I was getting through it pretty fast. And I definitely enjoyed it more than Gerald's Game. And I definitely, I think it's a better story than Langoliers. I enjoyed Langoliers for, like I said, the narration.
Well, I think it's also because, like you said, Langoliers is more of a science fiction story.
Yes.
Whereas this is more of a horror story.
But, like, you know, the reason I'm not giving it 5 stars as well is because, like, do I think it's the same level as Misery? I think it's underrated, but I don't think it's on the same level.
Oh, no, I don't.
So to me, it's like, I mean, I could technically give both 5, but I just think there were some things in here that I thought could have been a little tighter for me personally. But like Colton said, like, it's one of Colton's favorites. So he obviously thought it was like a 5-star read, I'm guessing. So, you know, to each his own. I could have, at points in the book, I thought it could have been a 5-star.
I think there was wonderful character development in the story. I loved the characters. I mean, I wish Alan, and you never know. I mean, Alan was under a lot of stress. He also had a sick wife.
Yeah.
None of that comes through in the movie.
Right.
You know, or whatever. And do I think at this point, maybe that they will go on being friends later on? I hope so. I hope that Dad and Liz even stay together.
Me too.
But, you know, you just never know. I guess that's where you get to decide, you know, whether or not,
like in the book,
yes, in the book.
But in the movie, like, so 5 stars, that's pretty high praise. What about the movie?
The movie, I think I'm going to give it it's so hard because I'm struggling between 3 and 4. Had I not read the book, I probably would have leaned more towards 4. After reading the book, I think I'm leaning more towards 3. Maybe 3.5. Letterboxd lets you do half. So I might go ahead and give a 3.5 because I am torn. I do think for the time period that it was made, the majority of the cast that were in it were chosen well. You know, I did like the special effects of how Thad looked in the movie as far as the decaying. It just kind of reminded me of, you know, the zombie element.
Which makes sense, yeah.
Which does make sense. So I think I'm going to go with 3.5 stars for the movie because it's a movie that I think I would watch again. And like we've talked about before, sometimes when you watch a movie for the first time, and I've been proven wrong and have actually bumped up my ratings.
Yes.
Christmas Evil is what I'm referring to. I think it's one of those things when you're watching it for the first time, you're watching it for specific elements and you don't catch everything because you're looking for specific elements. And in this case, you and I are reading the book and then we're looking for those elements. What's the same? What's different? What's character development? Is it as well as it is in the book? Usually not. But did they choose a good cast to portray these? You know,
for me, I'm torn too. It was a big comparison game. For me,
and
the whole time I was like, I didn't picture this like this, and this was not like that.
And I do think George Romero took it in a different direction than Stephen King did because I do think George Romero was trying to do the like almost like leaving you, the viewer. Is it really Thad or is it really a second person.
Yeah.
And so I think if you just watch the movie without ever reading the book, your expectations are different. Obviously,
you take
Paul,
it for what it is.
And what about Paul? Did you ask him how he would have rated it?
I didn't, but I could tell that it wasn't his favorite either.
It wasn't his favorite.
I thought that it made it seem like when we were watching that he was not like captured by it completely. Okay. So even he but I think also he's more sensitive to like older movies like being cheesy.
Yes.
So that could have been part of it too. But he wasn't as harsh about like the things that I found to be not right in terms of the not matching the book. So I would tell him like that didn't happen in the book. Right. Like some of the things he's like, oh really? I didn't know. And he totally could understand what was going on. But for me, it was just like because of the wife, I just didn't feel like the casting was right on that. Dad was okay, but again, way too angry. I did think that some things were better in the movie, like the explanation. I'm not sure I like the explanation better than in the book, but at least it like made sense to a viewer about why this this thing would become a physical being. That was a little bit like at least explained in a decent way to where it wasn't like everyone was so
now
confused.
I have to say I did love the part in the beginning when he had the dream and he went to look at his wife and his wife had that weird doll face, like when he came in and the vase
and it blew,
the vase broke, and then he went to where he saw that part and it cracked open and it had that weird turkey in there,
that was cool,
or whatever. And then he sees his wife, and then they revisited that scene, and when he came in the vase wasn't anything that could have broken that way, nothing happened. But then when he sees his wife, it's like, is she,
and she turns her head up and she's normal,
right? So I loved how
that's a good
that
scene.
Was a revisit to that. But I did find that scene in the beginning creepy.
I did too, and that was like the closest they got to having the dreams that he pictured in the book. But I still have to give it just a 3 because of the differences and because I like the book a lot more.
Well, that's fair.
A 3 for me usually means like it was okay, but I might not watch it again.
Okay. Yeah, you see, I do think I'd probably watch it again. I mean, I had watched
3.5, 4 is like I'd watch it again.
Yeah.
3 sometimes, but I don't know if I'd specifically need the
and if you would watch it again, it probably wouldn't be anytime soon.
No, for a while. And then maybe I would think differently about it. It might be interesting to revisit it in like 5 or 6 years.
Well, and you and I have talked about that when you like it would be great if we had the time to watch it and then rewatch it and like examine different elements. And I will have to admit this, when you watch something after a while, like it was a whole year watching Christmas Evil, and
you noticed things that you didn't even notice a year before.
I actually noticed things about the character and what the director was going for, more so the second time around, and I did bump my rating up. Is it one of my favorite movies? No, but still, I mean, it was worth it.
It was decent,
and I do think. Who's to say I would never watch it again? I would never say I would never watch it again.
I did fall asleep twice. Like that, maybe that's what's affecting my rating. I might have just been tired though, but it was 2 different nights where I fell asleep like each night.
Well, you have been doing an awful lot.
I have. So maybe that's why. Maybe it has something to do with the story, but I don't know. You take that, information how you will. But anyway, 3 stars for sure for me because it wasn't my favorite movie, but I did love the book. I almost gave it a 5, but it was a 4. I do want to read this comment, even though it's kind of unrelated, but still like horror related. So Arlene says, this is a bit off program, but US horror book covers are so tame compared to the crude vulgarity of British book covers.
Wow.
Here's a British book cover, and this is exactly what you mean. Like there's like a head cut off and there's like some blood over here. And this is I think it's a British novel because it's published by Star. They're usually British UK copies. And this one, printed and bound in Great Britain. This one is way more crazy than stuff you normally find, even on old school 80s horror paperbacks, which were pretty extreme compared to today. Even the British ones from back then were more
that's
crazy.
That's pretty interesting. I think also too, isn't language treated a little bit differently in the UK than it is in the US when it comes to
certain words are like better over there than over here. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's a factor too, but I know for specifically the horror book covers, there's a difference. There are some British covers that I want that I don't have for some old school paperbacks for sure. Well, guys, as we're wrapping up, any final thoughts? Hurry up, leave them in the chat. Just to reiterate, so this was our chat for our April King read. So our April King read was The Dark Half. We just happened to have the chat in May. But our May King read, which we will discuss at the end of this very month, just to reiterate, Pet Cemetery. And I know a lot of people have already read it. If you've already read it, please join us for the chat anyway.
Yes.
But be sure to watch both movie adaptations because we'll be
Mhm.
spoiling both of the adaptations. So if you only read the book, it's a good opportunity and excuse to just watch the
And that's going to be a
movies.
challenging conversation too, because this is going to be the first time we are talking about two movies.
It's going to be long, yeah, and an in-depth
compared
book.
to the book.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm hoping that Kelsey's going to love this book. It's one of my favorites. It's like in the top.
I really hope it's. I mean,
You know,
I've
like if
heard
I had to have a
nothing but
top
good
10, which is
things.
extremely hard considering that Stephen King has written a million books, I would have to have like a top 25.
Right.
You know,
well,
for
this whole
him.
time we've been doing this project, I'm like, is anything going to knock off The Shining? So as of right now, out of all the King books I've read, The Shining is my number one. Will anything we read this year knock off The Shining to number 2? And something will be my new number 1? That's like the big question, I think, as we go through these. Could it be this? We'll see.
Yeah, Pet Cemetery is awesome. So I hope you join us for our discussion on that.
Yes, right now, I believe it's Sunday, May 22nd at 2 p.m. Central Time, so it's the same time as today. But guys, we're wrapping it up right now. We had a great time. Thanks to all of you who watched live. Even if you could only watch a little while, we really appreciate it.
We do appreciate it. Thank you.
And thanks to anyone who also watched after the fact. I want to remind you that Kat has a blog, and it's linked in the description of the video you're watching right now. So please go check out her blog because she just talked about how she's kicking off Zombie Awareness Month. She talked about what she's going to be reading. She gave her movie list in that blog post that she just posted today. So please go check out her blog. Yes, it's good stuff there, and I'm excited because we've got like a big fun project for this whole month.
Yeah, it's gonna
just
be fun.
to show you guys some of the. I just got this book in Zombie Bake Off. That looks like a lot of fun. That's something I'm going to be reading. It should be a blast. And stuff like The Breeze Horror, which is supposed to be like an old school zombie-ish book.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited about all these books. We're going to have a fun month.
We are going to have a fun month. We're also reading The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Yep. So
different type of zombie, but still falls in the category for Zombie Awareness Month.
So probably in June, we're going to have a discussion about some of the movies we watched that we had in common for our zombie movie marathon that we're doing all month long, because we've got Serpent and the Rainbow that we're both watching. You are watching that, right?
Yes.
We're also watching 28 Days Later, I saw. And also you are watching or rewatching
Dawn of the Dead. Is it Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead, the remake,
the
newer version.
Not the George Romero version.
Yeah, I watched that last year.
Yes.
Awesome cheesiness.
And if I can convince her to watch Cooties.
I'm thinking about putting it on my list. I might take KL Zombie off. Isn't that the one with the bike?
Yeah, the bike off. The bike off.
There's a bike off in this movie that's very.
It is a really ridiculous movie. She would probably laugh throughout the whole thing. I laughed. It is pretty crazy.
Paul would hate it. I'd have to watch it alone. He'd be like, "This is corny." So we'll see. But anyway, guys, that's a lot of stuff to look forward to. Kat and I love chatting movies, but it's been fun with this Year of King to also bring books into it. So it's been really fun. All right, guys. Hopefully you can join us next time. And if you joined us this time, thank you so much. And until next time, what can they do?
Keep on killing it.
Keep on killing it. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.